Are we ready, Andrew? Got the thumbs up, we're online. First up today is bill introductions. Anybody on the committee have bill introduction? Seeing none from the audience, Lindsay Douglas.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Lindsay Douglas, Deputy Secretary at the Kansas Department of Transportation. Here today to request a bill introduction. Before I introduce that RS number, I just want to say thank you to the Revisor's Office for their work and partnership this year on getting our bills drafted. Requesting RS 0900. This bill would help us to make just a couple of adjustments to the tolling legislation that passed in 2019. Now that we are having a study done on US 69 with Overland Park as the community sponsor, we've identified a couple of issues with the legislation that could limit our discussions with Overland Park. So there's three main changes. The first is kind of explicit authority for the Secretary to partner with the KTA. The second two relate to uses of the toll revenue. There's some discussion about, future improvements on that facility, not taking the money off of that, but just keeping it there, but maybe for future improvements. Also some discussion about how transit would operate in that managed lane. So those are the things we'd like to bring forward in the requested legislation, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Committee, questions or objections? Seeing none, without objection, the bill will be introduced. Further bill introductions? Seeing none, we'll turn our attention to the hearing on Senate Bill. Adam, could you give us a briefing?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Senate Bill 68 would establish a fee for a current distinctive license plate. The current license plate is the firefighter distinctive license plate. Currently in statute, of course, there is the distinctive license plate for anyone who's a firefighter. They can obtain this current plate. This bill would require an additional $10 firefighting training fee for those individuals, an annual fee of $10 for those individuals wanting to continue to have this plate or obtain this plate. And that was started on January 1 of 2021. The fee itself would go towards a newly created firefighter training fund, and expenditures from this fund would go towards the purpose of providing financial support related to honoring Kansas firefighters, training Kansas firefighters, or any general use that supports the Kansas firefighters. Essentially, the designee, the recipient of the funds would be the Kansas State Firefighters Association, who would determine what uses the money would go towards. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Adam? Seeing none, thank you, Adam. First on our agenda, we have proponents, Adam Lusker with Federico Durst Consulting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. I'm Adam Lusker with Federico Durst Consulting, here to stand in support of Senate Bill 68. As you heard, Senate Bill 68.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Okay. I'm Heidi Firehome Smith, and I am the founder of the Love Chloe Foundation. In November of 2006, my 6-year-old daughter, Chloe, was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor called DIPG, diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. So upon that diagnosis, we chose to do treatment, even though we knew that we were told that there wasn't any viable treatment available for her. But we chose to go ahead and try what we could. We live in Salina. I'm a lifelong resident of Salina, and so our treatments were in Kansas City. So we traveled on a regular basis to and from Kansas City for her treatment. And then when her tumor progressed, we even had to go to Texas to try to seek out experimental treatments that might work for her. Unfortunately, none of the treatments worked. And after 11 months, she did pass away in October of 2007. So she was 7 years old. After going through this whole experience and being thrown into the childhood cancer realm, I decided that I didn't want to just go back to regular life. I wanted to do something and make a difference and help other families. So I decided to start an organization. So we started the Love Chloe Foundation in memory of Chloe. And with three sort of missions we've developed over the years. We started the organization in 2008, and it's really grown and developed since then. Our initial thought was we wanted to fund research, but early on we found out that that takes millions of dollars, and so we knew we still wanted to fund research, but we also wanted to do something that we could make an impact now and help these families. And so one of the first things that we did through the foundation is develop a program that helps kids stay connected with their classmates while they're undergoing cancer treatment. And Chloe loved monkeys and she loved school. So this was just kind of a given that we could do something in her honor to help other families. So one of the things that we did, and I've got an example, is we developed what we call the Monkey in My Chair program. And you guys can see this big monkey, but we send out a big monkey along with a lot of other items to kids that are going through cancer treatments, and the monkey goes to school while the child stays at home. So it fills their seat at school. It gives their classmates something tangible. It opens up conversation about what's going on. I wrote a children's book that accompanies it. And so it's a way for the teacher to sit down and read to the classroom, open up questions about what might happen. Not every childhood cancer situation is the same. We see commercials on TV with bald kids. My daughter never lost her hair. So not every kid is going to go through the same experience. But my daughter went, she had to be on a high dose of steroids since she had brain cancer. So she went from being a petite 40-pound little girl to 80 pounds. So when her classmates saw her after a few months, she looked way different, you know. So being able to, we wanted to develop a way for those discussions to be had in the classroom and to really make it less scary for kids. So we developed the Monkey in My Chair program in 2009, and it just kind of grew from there. It became, within a year, I had 100 hospitals asking for Monkey in My Chair kits. So we ended up partnering with another organization, a larger organization out of Cincinnati that is doing the exact same thing we are, but just on a larger scale. So the funding for Monkey in My Chair now is in partnership with another organization to ensure that we can send these kits all over the United States. We send about 1,000 kits every single year to children all over the United States. And we have an organization in Australia that purchases the kits to be able to get them out there. So the Monkey in My Chair program was a big thing that we were able to develop under the Love Chloe Foundation. The other thing that other than Monkey in My Chair and research, we also have been able to help local families. So living in the middle of Kansas, we see several families every year that are having to drive back and forth to Kansas City to receive treatment. We have the nearest treatment for most kids with childhood cancer. A few can go to Wichita, which is about an hour from us, but everyone is traveling 3 hours to Kansas City. And the burden on the families is very great. Many families that have a child diagnosed with cancer, one parent must take leave from their work. So they go from being a 2-income family to a 1-income family, which is a huge burden. So we're able to provide, we've developed a family assistance grant. And so families across the state of Kansas can apply to get some sort of relief and assistance to help offset those expenses or help with a mortgage or utilities, whatever they may need. And we offer that for families to apply for on an annual basis. And so we've been able to help several families. Through the license plate, we want to be able to really raise awareness that there's a lot of families that are going through childhood cancer, and we have a lot of survivors out there too. So we also want to be able to honor those kids that have gone through the fight and have survived, but also in memory of those kids that maybe didn't. So we think that we feel like the license plate would be a great way to really raise that awareness. We see lots of license plates for other illnesses and organizations, and so we feel like childhood cancer really deserves that you know that recognition and to be out there as well. And through the license plate, we have an example of what the license plate will look like, and we incorporated a gold ribbon, which is the symbol for childhood cancer. And on our design, we incorporated a yellow brick road to kind of really tie into the Kansas theme. And then the rainbow represents hope. So we were very intentional with the design of the license plate and what it means, and connecting it to childhood cancer. And the funds that we'll bring in from that royalty fee that is charged will go towards what we call fueling the fight. And so we want to be able to provide gas cards for families that are, through the hospitals. So the hospitals will be supplied with gas cards, and they can give those to families as needed, because we know that's the best way to reach the families. Is they're seeing them as they're diagnosed, they know their situation, and so they'll be able to get those cards to the families as they need them. So we're really excited. This process started a long time ago. We got held up with COVID last year, but we were really happy to see the support of the Senate last year. It moved through fairly quickly, and so we're really hoping that this year we can move right along and see this license plate on the back of cars.
Questions? Senator Hawk.
I can't hear anything right now.
Oh, sorry. I turned my mic off by mistake. What's the minimum number of license plates that you need to have in pre-sold, I guess, in order to be able to offer this? And I think we changed those numbers, and I can't remember what they are.
I think the minimum on an annual basis is 100. If you fall below that, but the initial response, what we did when we decided we wanted to do this, we had the bill presented last year. We went ahead and reached out through social media and asked people to sign a petition, because part of the process is that you must provide 500 signatures in a petition to show that support statewide. We have over 1,100 signatures on our petition right now. So we know that there's statewide support for the license plate. So we feel like we'll have a decent number. Our goal is to get 500 every year, but we know that, I think with the rules with the Department of Revenue, is that you have to have at least 100 to keep that in and available to people to purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jill or Adam, do you want to provide some clarity on the number of license plates?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. There's a 500 plate initial commitment with the division. These numbers have been, the last couple of years, have been different bills have been brought, but they've not actually adjusted the numbers. So these are all the current numbers that have existed in statute for a while. And then essentially there's that 500 plate initial commitment. And then after that, every 2 years, there's a rolling 250 plate commitment, continual renewal commitment. So those are kind of the standard requirements.
Thank you, Adam. Committee, further questions? Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Firearm Smith, I just wanted to tell you how much we appreciate you bringing this to Kansas. I appreciate you putting the yellow brick road on that. I think it's a beautiful license plate design for Kansas. And I know how difficult that must have been for you, and I appreciate you taking that frustration and that pain and putting it towards a positive purpose to help kids across the nation. So I really appreciate what you do. Thanks so much.
Senator Cluse.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I definitely would echo my colleague over here. And I guess my question would be, and I'm in 100% support of this, having a background in hospice and dealing with these families and situations in the past. The question is, reference was made to other license plates that are geared towards other diseases. So childhood cancer, obviously a broad wording here. There's all types of cancer. Are there other, I guess, what would be the other categories that are out there on the current license plates, and would they be distinct to other childhood cancers, or just want a little clarity on that?
Senator, we could ask Jill to provide us a copy of all the license, especially license plates that are out there, and get that to the committee if that would be your desire.
Yeah, I guess just,
I know that there's a breast cancer license plate. We wanted to include all childhood cancer, and also, if you notice on the design, we don't specifically limit it to the Love Chloe Foundation because we want to also partner with other organizations. So we want to make it very inclusive to all childhood cancers and bringing that awareness to, because there's about 40 different types of childhood cancers.
okay, so there's going to be a networking with other organizations.
Absolutely. We want to work with, and that's why we didn't want to just brand it as Love Chloe, because it's bigger than Love Chloe. It's childhood cancer. And so we don't want it to be about us. That's kind of our mission is, we want it to be about the kids, and we want it to be about the bigger mission and not just about our own organization.
Okay, thank you. No, that brings the clarity.
Thank you. Jill, did you have something you wanted to add?
Mr. Chairman, I was planning to bring that list of license plates to the committee tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your work on what you're doing. I would ask, are those signatures on the petition electronic, or did you gather handwritten signatures?
It is electronic due to the nature of getting the support some statewide. So we did, we asked people, that they agree to certain terms, that they are of age, they are a resident of Kansas. And so we were able to collect their name and where they live in Kansas, so we know where the support is. And we also have contact information, so we can always reach back out to those people.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, could we ask the revisers or research whether electronic or acceptable for the application for the tag? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jill, did you get to catch that question? Thank you. Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you for bringing this forward today. Appreciate you coming on WebEx. Hopefully you could hear pretty well. We will now ask, are there any other proponents wishing to testify on Senate Bill 69? Seeing none, are there any neutrals? Any opponents? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 69. Committee would like to turn our attention to working Senate Bill 25, at least get started through with that. Adam, could you give us a refresher on Senate Bill 25?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Happy to. Senate Bill 25 would prohibit the use of a mobile telephone while operating in a school zone or a road construction zone. Additionally, the bill would prohibit individuals under 18 years of age from using a mobile telephone while operating in the motor vehicle at any time. The bill provides exceptions allowing for the use of these devices by law enforcement acting within their scope of employment and individuals who use hands-free devices. Additionally, individuals would be allowed to use a mobile telephone in certain circumstances, such as reporting current or ongoing illegal activity, preventing imminent injury to a person or property, to summon medical or emergency assistance, or relay information between a transit or for-hire operator and the operator's dispatchee if the device is permanently affixed to the motor vehicle. Lastly, holding the mobile telephone would constitute prima facie evidence of a violation, and the fine for any individual found guilty would be $60. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Adam? Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I participated via online on YouTube when this was brought, and so I have a couple questions that I wrote down. One was, are there any federal funds being drawn down through this? Does it draw any federal funds if it's passed?
I'm not aware of any correlation with federal funds.
Okay.
But I don't, that's kind of that would be something that either KDOT or probably the division would have to answer. I'm not aware of any.
You know, Mr. Chairman?
I do not know.
I think we need to get an answer to that. I know that in the past when we've put on stricter compliance with safety seats and all of that. A lot of times there's drawdown federal funds when we take those steps. So I'd be interested to see if there are. I have a couple other questions, Mr. Chairman, if I can proceed.
If they're for Adam, yes.
Yeah, Adam, I was curious, when someone is caught in a school zone or road construction zone, underage, say 18 and under, like the bill says, is the phone confiscated?
The bill doesn't speak to that. I don't believe it would be. That would be more towards a criminal type of, acquisition by the police. And the bill has no requirement or does not provide for any confiscation of the phone.
It also doesn't have a prohibition, does it? That they couldn't do that? I mean, if they wanted to, is there anything prohibiting that action?
The language of the bill does not prohibit that explicitly.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, if I can proceed, I'm curious as to how we deal with the fact that law enforcement can determine someone's age at 18 versus 19, 20. I can't distinguish the difference between a 20-year-old and an 18 or a 17-year-old. I'm not that adept at that. Does the bill deal with that at all? I mean, if the officer stops them and pulls them over and they're 19, what's consequence?
I'm assuming that they would be they're outside of school or
I'm sorry, I should have clarified that because I know it covers everyone in the school zone and construction. So, but outside that, if they're 18 years or younger, what happens? Is there a consequence if an officer pulls someone over who's 19 versus 18?
I mean, they wouldn't be cited under the statute because they wouldn't meet the criteria.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I just say that, if this gets to the floor, I think there's going to be some discussions on profiling. Always is, always are. And I think that that's one of the consequences of passing legislation like this. Also, Mr. Chairman had some comments that, there are a lot of people that can't afford the new technology in the new automobiles. The hands-off, the be able to use your hands-free, your phone. It's all on I have that in one of my vehicles. I don't have it in the other vehicle. And so, there are a lot of people out there who just can't afford that. So I just have some concerns about this legislation, and I'll have other comments if this gets to the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just so you know, I don't have any of the vehicles that have that automatic in mine either. However, I do have a phone that you can touch and it'll operate with the speaking. Any further questions for Adam? Senator Pittman?
I was going to make a motion that we start making, I have an amendment, but I want to know if it's the time to start working the amendments or not.
I'm getting ready to start working amendments. I have three, one by the industry right off the bat.
Do we need a motion to move?
No, we can start, we can pass it. I'll just start it off. I have an amendment that's been worked on by the AAA Association. I'll hand it out. Or have it handed out. Deals with warning citations. Travis, since you're here, would you want to come explain this amendment that you worked on? Please state your name and who you represent.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Travis Lowe. Today, hearing on behalf of AAA Kansas. Thank you for the opportunity to offer our amendment. In light of some of the questions that were brought by committee members last week regarding the opportunity to educate and train the drivers on the impacts of this law, we thought it would be helpful to bring an amendment that would call for the delayed enforcement for 6 months to allow warnings to take place if pulled over, but also for a disability to have the information communicated to the drivers across the state. So I believe there's an amendment on file with Supervisor Sievers who that I hopefully would be available, and it would effectively delay the enforcement until January 1 of 2022. That's what that amendment would do.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we have
that amendment.
That's it right there. Yes.
You're missed, Adam and Chris.
Mr. Chairman, is my screen appearing up on the? I'm doing the share screen. I want to make sure it's working. The amendment should read the warning citation here. That's generally how we distinguish clearly or quickly what amendment is being brought.
Yeah, my mic wasn't on. Warning citation is the one that we are on. We accidentally handed out the wrong amendment first, but we'll get to it. That's why I said you were missed. This is the warning citation that you just heard from Travis Lowe. Basically, what it does is it extends it out till it'll only give warnings until January of 2022. Committee discussion on this. Senator Clays. Motion, and it's been seconded by J.R. Clays. Further discussion? All those in favor of putting the warning on signify by saying aye. Opposed? Amendment is adopted. Got one of them on. Next, I guess we'll turn our attention to, since it's passed out, amendment from Senator Pittman on holding phones.
Can I go ahead and describe it?
Go ahead and describe it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's already out of order there. It was, I know you had some things before, and so I appreciate the putting a second here. Going through the testimony, I had some communication with some constituents who were concerned, as Senator Powell pointed out, profiling, maybe not on age, but maybe on race, on some other factors, that by having this out there, that, you know, during the last couple of years, there's been a huge amount of concern about profiling, obviously, and we've all heard it, whatever side you're on that. But there's concerns out there that this could be used for that purpose. That said, the provision specifically says prohibiting the use of a mobile telephone. And I find that to be very, very restrictive, especially given the fact that, you know, like my Ford F-150 95 doesn't have any of the technology, once again, as you both pointed out. However, I do have a speakerphone on my cell phone, and I want to be able to use it. Specifically, the way it was described to me, which I agree with, not holding it up to the ear so that we're distracted by that is perfectly fine. But hands-free shouldn't be so restrictive as to not be able to use a speakerphone and hold that phone, perhaps in the hand, perhaps on the side of your seat. I don't care how we use it, but I think that this is just more practical for the way we operate cell phones and speaker hands-free right now. And not everybody can afford a Bluetooth connection system like a lot of folks have. And so that was a big concern for me. I think it's good not to have distracted driving. I just think that we need to really look at the realities of speakerphones and the way we operate. The other piece of this is, it says a person, if you look at line 18, a person operating a vehicle while such vehicle is lawfully parked. What I asked the revisor to do is, the second part of this is, if we're stopped inside of a school zone, I'm not even saying off the road, but if we're stopped because there's traffic there and we're waiting for, as the example was, little Johnny to come out, or we're trying to coordinate, and we're stopped and there is no issue with the driver actually moving the vehicle, there should be no penalty for using that phone at that point in time. Likewise, if I'm stopped in a construction zone, like we've all been, something's happening, legally stopped, there should be no restriction there while we are stopped and not operating that vehicle. So those are the two pieces of this amendment. I think it makes it better. I know that I've had a lot of concerns from my constituents that we're putting a lot of laws of restrictions in place. I think this is a practical compromise. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions.
Senator, first question I have is, you're striking the prima facie evidence, so how is the officer to know whether the person is illegally using their telephone?
That's a great point. If I have a telephone to my ear, that's a pretty good evidence, and they can stop them and find out if I were using it. I think prima facie is a bit too strict of a standard to immediately assume guilt. If I had the phone in my hand, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily using it for cell phone use.
Okay. I guess we do need to get a motion on this. You moved that. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Dietrich. Now we can continue to further discussion. Further questions or discussion? Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you explain why you took out 32 and 33 lines, struck those?
Adam, could you help me out there? I don't know why that was struck out there.
Sure. Line 32, those all relate to that prima facie evidence standard. So that's it all falls under subsection E and 30. So removing the prima facie evidence, as we just discussed, that applies to both subsections, and since that standard no longer would exist, that's why that whole 30 through 34 was stricken.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. That makes sense. I was a little worried we were eliminating the school zone and road construction zone, but I see that's still up in the first part of the bill.
Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I'm just trying to think my way through this. So up to the ear, illegal, holding it here, legal. Is that where you're at? This is fine. Well, how are you to know that? I could be doing anything with this thing.
You could be, and as you pointed out during our hearing, you could be also trying to reroute traffic, using your audio texting.
Right.
Which under the current provisions of the bill as it stands, you'd be violating this law.
I guess at some point we're really getting into the weeds on micromanaging someone inside their vehicle. So I guess that would be point A. But then point B would be, if the intent of this bill is to stop the distraction, the difference between distraction and no one can see me if you're listening on the audio feed, but moving your phone from ear to 5 inches away from ear where you're able to look at it, seems like the distraction actually increases as you move it away, and now it's in your visual sight. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm for this or against this, to be honest with you, but I'm trying to figure out how this accomplishes the stated goal of reducing distraction, and I don't know that this improves that, if that's the goal, and maybe even increases the amount of guessing that the officer has to do when out in the field making decisions about who he is or is not, or she is or is not, pulling over to interrogate about their use of a cell phone in a construction zone. Maybe you could just speak to that, I guess. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I suppose if you bring it down to the, the infinite piece, yeah, you could be right there. Yeah, typically, though, cell phones are used outside of the scope of 5 inches from the ear. I think 5 inches from the ear, as you indicated, would probably be guilty. However, I do think, though, that this is a very restrictive bill as it stands. And having a cell phone and knowing that we can put this somewhere and use the speakerphone, the bill as it stands, if I'm using the speakerphone and I happen to have a hand to turn off the phone, I'm doing something illegal. And I find that it just seems as though we're inviting abuse of that. I think we should figure a way out. Maybe this isn't the best way, but the intent here is to not make it so prohibitive that everybody's doing something illegally by using their speakerphone, I guess. But I appreciate that. I don't like micromanaging one's activity inside the car either, which is why I want to make this bill better.
Committee, yes, you may.
I'm very concerned about the profiling issue as well. If we start making things that are just visually seen as a reason to pull somebody over, you can make up anything. I've actually been in a scenario where I was in a vehicle that was pulled over and accused of not wearing a seat belt. Turned out the vehicle had automatic seat belts. You know, there are situations like that that occur where an officer is just simply wrong. And this sort of delineating between where this phone is in the person's hand in relationship to their ear just seems like it's fraught with problems. Not that having it here isn't also fraught with problems, or the bill as it stands is not fraught with problems when it comes to that. But I'm having a lot of trouble with this, not just the amendment, but the entire concept of what we're trying to accomplish here, because I think profiling's a super difficult issue to overcome when you start making these little things a reason to pull someone over and start interrogating them to go fishing for evidence of something else.
Well, committee, just a quick reminder is that this only applies to construction zones and school zones. And when we take this bill up again, we will be on this amendment because we are now out of time. We're adjourned.